All right, let's start our next lesson. So what we have so far is we have this little square character that's moving left and right. It's pretty big on the screen. It's set to 50, 50, 50. What I'd like to do is import in our own character. Go ahead and grab it from the module. I'm also going to just throw this whole file up on this project later up on GitHub if you need the art assets. But anyway, I made a folder inside the art folder and I called it characters. So go ahead and do that. If you remember, you just right click create folder. And then I'm going to right click on this characters folder and I'm going to go to import new asset. And I'm just going to navigate to where I downloaded this character. Now what I'm going to do next is this character is really just a PNG with a transparent background. I should have erased out this area here. Now I'm going to grab this and I'm just going to drop it on top of my canvas and scale him down a little bit so he's like the size roughly of, like, I'm really looking down here to see what I'd like him to look like on the screen. And then I'm going to grab that script. Let's see, where's that at? My scripts folder. I'm going to grab that player movement script and drop it on top of here. And I'm going to delete this square. I'm also going to move this below the word canvas so that it's sitting a little higher. And I want to rename this to player instead of kid. Okay, now when I press play, we have our kid not moving. And I think that has to do with the fact that we don't have any speed for our player movement. So let's make that 2. Now something else we should do is we should update it so the character flips position. If I move right, the character will flip position. So right now it's just moving left and right, and that's actually pretty slow. And maybe we could do it where there's like power-ups that affect the player's movement speed. So if I remember that as we're moving, you know, I'll like a power-up will fall out, like a certain letter, like an asterisk or something. If it falls and you grab it, it'll give them some speed. So let's actually do that. I'm going to go ahead and double-click on player movement and open up Writer. Again, you could do this in Visual Studio. Okay, so here we have our code, and what we had last time was just the movement, but I added some new code. So we're going to go through this step by step. What we're doing, and I'll go ahead and make this public actually, we have this Boolean in here, and we're going to use it to check if we're facing left or right. Now the problem with this is our character is already set and is facing the character's right and like our left. So we actually have to go back in really quick and just flip this character on the x-axis for this to work properly, because now our character is always checking is facing right, and we have this checked on. So now it's always, we're making sure it's always checking right. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control S to save this. Jump back into Writer. And for those of you who don't know, a Boolean only holds 2 values, or 1 value really, but like it only has 2 options, a true or a false, or a 0 and 1. So I guess those are 4 options, but they really mean the same thing. Now inside of update, this is pretty much the same. We're just recording the key presses and storing that value, right? Like if we're holding it down for negative or positive. And remember, this is where we're setting the new position in the world on that x-axis, and this is where we're actually moving it. Now this is where the new stuff is, and this is where we're actually looking at, we're checking here the direction and the value of that direction. So let's kind of break this down. So it says if horizontal input is greater than 0 and we're not facing right. So what does that mean? Not facing right means this Boolean value is set to false. So if this Boolean value is false and we're going the 0 direction, we're going to call this flip method, which I'll get into in a second. So let me show you this in Unity. So here's our horizontal value. It has to be greater than 0, right? So let's select our player. Here's our player. And right now we're looking at, now it has to be greater than 0. So as I'm moving left, notice that negative value goes up. If I'm moving right, notice that that negative value goes down. So we're getting greater than 0. Here we hit greater than 0. So let me go ahead and hit play, and I want you to watch this facing right Boolean value and watch it switch. Oops, let's make sure we select our player here, and I'm going to click in the menu. As I go left and right, notice that I'm facing right. This is true. Now, if I press left, that turned off. So that means that we are currently set to false. So we're checking if this is false, and our value is getting negative. But when I go to the right, we turned it back on again. So by having this switch here, we're saying, okay, as long as our value keeps going up, right, from 0, and we are not off, then we're going to call this flip method. And all this flip method does, this new flip method is we toggle on and off by saying face right equals not face right. We're not setting it always to false. We're just saying the opposite of whatever it's currently at. So it's just toggling or switching that face right value on and off. And then we're saying, okay, we're going to multiply the player's X local scale by -1 to flip it. And so I kind of have this comment here, but and I'll get that in a second. But so we're saying the scale, which is just remember, this is a value that we're storing. This is X, Y, and Z, is equal to whatever our current local scale is. So let's look at what local scale really is here. Okay, now all we're doing, to be honest with you, is we're flipping the scale value. We could flip this x-axis here as well, and maybe in another video I'll do it that way. There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm just showing you one particular way so that you can build up a lot of tools in your arsenal when you're programming. But I want you to look at this x value here. So notice as my character is moving right, this is a positive value, and if I hit left, it just flipped the character to a negative value. So this is one way of doing it, right? So we're just literally flipping the local scale inside of our code as our character moves left and right. Now, how are we doing that? Well, there's a shorthand way of coding this, which works exactly the same as this one. I just wanted to show you both. And what it is it's saying the scale, which is this value here. Remember, we're just storing the current scale of the X, Y, and Z. We're just going to look at only the x-axis. Remember that -14? And we're going to say the x-axis times a -1. And then all we do is we set, by going into the transform component, which is here, local scale of the x-axis, we set it to that value that we were, bring that back up, sorry about that. We set that local scale value, remember the scale here, the scale, we're just setting that to that -1. So that's a really simple way of like flipping our character left and right. And if we go back over here, we're doing the exact same thing. We're saying, okay, if our value is negative, right? Like if we're going down, we'll switch it to true, or we'll switch the face. We'll check if the face right value is true, because at this point we want it to be true because we're moving in the sorry, not right, but if we're moving in the left direction, we want to make sure that we switch it so that it's ready for the next switch, which is going right. So having a Boolean value to check the flip, like checking a flip, or if we're touching the ground, or if we're shooting, or whatever mechanic you're building out, is a great stopgap, or a great way of checking or securing that you're actually moving in this direction. So we always kind of you always want to keep sort of a Boolean value sitting there. And so really you're just typing this out again, and then you're just putting flip in there, and you're calling that same flip method, which is this right here. So pretty easy enough. And let's look at that one last time for coolness factor. As I press play here, you can see we're moving left and right, which is awesome. And what we'll do in the next video is we'll add like a little cloud, and then out inside that cloud, our letters will drop.